I can see the emotion in your face as you say it.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that in a while.
Pierre did it again. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, Pierre Poilievre going on the second biggest podcast in the world, The Diary of the CEO out of the UK. Great podcast. I think it was even better than the one from Rogan, just because the questions that Stephen asks on the podcast just kind of get a lot deeper. We got more talk about the Alto high-speed rail, Pierre Poilievre having a press conference, vowing to cut the gas tax. We got a bunch of other stuff. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, Shrey Teese sharing this liaison strategies poll that, well, look at this. Doug Ford almost getting overtaken in Ontario. I said this would happen after Bonnie Crombie stepped down as Liberal leader. You'll get someone else in there. And look at this. They're surging even before they have their leaders. So 36% to 39%. Things change quickly in Canada. That's what we've learned here. And modeled out, this is only 54 seats for the PCs and 51 seats for the Liberals. Look at this, plus 37. We've got this one from Table Salt breaking out of nowhere. Canada has imported $3.2 billion worth of gold and precious metals in February, doubling the previous month. Most of it from the United States. Why? Don't know. Grok seems to think it's market-driven volatility, not scarcity, same pattern as prior jumps. We've got this one from the food professor. Look at this. He used to have a column on La Presse, as he says here, and it's been suspended indefinitely this week after 25 years and more than 1,000 columns. This was not his decision. He says the decision was linked to recent public comments he made on social media regarding the evolving media landscape in Canada, involving reflections on government support for media and its potential implications. He says he understands these are sensitive and complex issues, and his remarks may not have aligned with the publication's perspective. And what do? They cut him, because La Presse gets money from the government. This just shows you where their allegiance lies. It's not with delivering the truth and honesty, it's with getting that gravy train money from the Liberal Party. Moving ahead, here's a fun one Melissa posting. The big banks in Canada have CEOs who do not have French fluency. Something to think about. I didn't even think about that, but I mean, we're talking big banks here. Maybe they should all be fluent in French too, right? These are also in the top 10 valued companies in Canada, so why would Mark Carney and Jolie only have Air Canada CEO? Something bigger for sure. I pointed this out in a previous video. They need Air Canada to take on a higher percentage of green jet fuel so Mark Carney can make more money with his carried interest to boost his Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1 to get rich. So that's why they're doing that. I think the Conservatives should bring this up in the House of Commons. If they don't speak French, then why does the CEO of Air Canada have to? Clearly, this all comes down to money. People are greedy. This is all about money. Moving ahead, talking about fuel tax, we've got Melanie Jolie here gets asked about this. What do you think her response is? Are they going to cut the GST on gas?
Messy. So, of course, we're taking note of what the prices of oil and gas are in the world right now. We know it's hurting Canadians, and at the same time, we are very much aware that there's a war in the Middle East. We also take note of President Trump's speech last night, and the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister will be reacting to that shortly.
So basically, they know there's a problem. They know that Canadians can't afford to eat. Rent is too much. Everything's too expensive. They have an opportunity to do something to make life better for Canadians, and they're choosing not to do that. Okay. Meanwhile, we've got Pierre Poilievre here wanting to cut the gas tax. Listen to this exchange.
Graham Richardson, CTV. Let's just assume they're not going to do this. They're not going to go to zero for 2026. A couple of questions. First of all,
Don't be so pessimistic.
well,
Graham. Come on.
you know. First of all,
He's gotten so cynical over the years.
what's the cost if they did that for the year 2026? If you could clarify that. And do you view this as like you mentioned the other countries that have done something? Is a success for you if they do something on one of the taxes? If it's unrealistic to go to zero?
Thanks, Graham. The lower the better. So every penny that we can get reduced in taxes is a penny in the pockets of the people who earned it. You asked about the cost. I like to describe it as a savings. It's $5.25 billion in savings for Canadians. Now, I've already identified some areas that I think we can use to pay for it. Let's get rid of the $90 billion Alto project. Let's get rid of the gun buyback that is targeting law-abiding farmers, hunters, and sports shooters. Mr. Carney's brought in $90 billion of net new spending measures above and beyond his promised savings and beyond what Trudeau was already spending. So what I'm saying is for basically 1/20th of that, he could eliminate all taxes on fuel. The problem is that the government is too rich and the people are too poor. It's time to have the government pinch its pennies so that Canadians don't have to. Thanks, Graham.
Yeah, and that's not what the government's going to do. They're just trying to run us into the ground. They're going to milk us dry until there's nothing left. Jumping ahead, something I posted on my X account here, a TV network just approached me about having my own show. So this is true. This is not April Fool's. It's April 2nd here. Definitely an honor to have this. I don't know if this will go forward. Great network. Wouldn't want me to change anything about my show. The thing is there's legalities having a show on YouTube. There's fair use, fair dealings, as it's called in Canada. But a lot of these same rules, these same freedoms that a social media content creator has doesn't apply to broadcast. I'll give you any updates if anything happens with this. There was also a few comments in here which I thought were pretty interesting, like this guy talking about an intellectual property, whether someone else already has a Moose brand, Moose on the Loose, etc. I even thought about renaming my hiking channel to Moose Tracks, but that's a name of an ice cream that's trademarked, so I didn't do that. But I will be renaming my hiking channel as well, something moose related. If you have any ideas for that, leave in the comments down below. There's lots of comments here, people posting the Trojan horse and all this. Just to be clear, my YouTube show is not going anywhere. There's no Trojan horse. There's no payouts. I will not be compromised. And I think the legalities will get in the way of this going forward, but we'll see. Moving on to the diary of the CEO here. We got Mark Nixon clipping this. We're at the end of the podcast. Stephen asked Pierre Poilievre about politicians and bringing them on. He typically doesn't do that because he says they're slippery. I thought this was a great response.
Thank you so much. Thank you
sir.
for taking the time to come have this conversation with me and answering all of my questions. I don't like interviewing politicians because they are very slippery.
Right.
And they slip and slide away from answering things in a way that makes the very essence of why we started this show feel like we're not delivering for the audience who want to know the truth, whether it's ugly or indifferent or whatever it might be. And I've really enjoyed the conversation because I feel like you answered my questions to the best of your ability.
Thank you.
And that's not usually the case with politicians. And
Thank you.
I think they think that's the right approach, but actually, I think in a world that's now more of a glass box than ever before, and not a black box where you can paint the image of something on the outside, being transparent and being willing to come into these environments. And your team didn't tell me anything was off limits. They didn't say there was anything I couldn't ask you.
Right.
They didn't ask to be able to edit this. And I would like more politicians to follow in that vein.
That's some big praise there. More politicians to follow in Pierre Poilievre's vein. And this is how it should be done. I think Stephen nailed it here. It's all about just being the glass box, being transparent. That's why the audience, you guys are watching me, Jasmine, Josh, etc. Because, we're not selling you anything. This is our honest opinions about things. We dig into stuff. We put it out. What the media used to do. Media is not trustworthy anymore. That's why people aren't watching CBC. They're seeing record declines in viewership because they're paid propaganda. So this is big praise. And I think Poilievre needs to do more of these podcasts because his best clips come from these long form podcasts where he can really get into this stuff. There's lots of great moments in this podcast, like this one where he's talking about his daughter, Valentina.
She's so affectionate. Like, we went to a fall fair one time and there were these little old ladies sitting there, and Valentina just decided she liked this little old lady and went and sat on her lap, like a complete stranger. But that's how she is. She decides she likes you and you're in.
This podcast goes into much more depth into Pierre's upbringing than basically any other podcast I've seen.
What age do you get to meet your biological mother for the first time?
21, 22. My adopted mother was very gracious because I said, I won't meet my biological mother without the permission of my adopted mother. She did all the work of raising me, all the hardships, she put up with all of my rambunctiousness in teenage years and drove me to hockey practice and, emptied her bank account to pay for our food and stuff. So I did not want her to feel like she was going to be left behind or forgotten about or replaced. And I asked her, would you be okay if I met her? And she said, yes, of course, because I won't always be here and I always want you to have a mother. And I thought that was a really incredible thing to do because it's such a big part of a mother's identity is that they are the mother of that child. But to have a love that's so much deeper than that personal identity or interest is something I'll always remember. It's one of the most gracious things I've ever seen.
I can see the emotion in your face as you say it.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that in a while.
What beautiful people.
Yes, we're very blessed. And it's people like these that inspire me, that keep me going in this crazy world of politics.
It's quite the statement. I mean, his biological mother, I believe, is 16 years old when she gave him up for a better life. So likely the mother that raised him will pass much before his biological mother's, and graciously is saying, well, I always want you to have a mother. He'll have his biological mother as well in his life, probably much longer, another, 15, 20 years? Quite a gracious thing of his mother to say. And jumping ahead, we've got this clip here where Pierre's talking about the free market and specifically the book on the table here, the creation of the free market, and then goes into socialism.
I have found that those who push a socialist ideology have a gross contradiction in their view of human nature. They say that human beings are wretched, self-interested, greedy when they're in the private voluntary economy, but they're angels when they're in the governmental economy. And therefore they argue that the government should just control everything, because then we have all these angels that will decide for us, decide what we get to, how our money is spent, what we're supposed to believe in the modern day, what kind of vehicles we drive, what we should think. But that is a huge contradiction. If man is not capable of deciding for himself, surely he's not capable of deciding for others. And I think the worst vices in human nature come out when there is too much power and concentrated in their hands. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So my ideology is that we should disperse power, that it should be a bottom-up system with as much freedom and agency as humanly possible, that people should be free to choose for themselves, and that the purpose of the government is to do only those things people cannot do for themselves.
This is so on point. We've got Mark Carney, who set up GFAN's Glasgow Lines for Net Zero, set up this company, got in a bunch of all the big banks, all the big players, BlackRock, etc. Billions, trillions of dollars of capital to push towards net zero, made the framework for it, got all the climate activists on board, Greta Thunberg, etc. Then goes over to Brookfield and starts enacting this plan. He gets called out by the American government for running a green cartel and essentially antitrust, rigging the system. Then he goes into Plan B, where he starts pushing his agenda through Justin Trudeau. He joins Brookfield in the exact same month, August of 2020. Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney then oust Trudeau at the right moment. Carney comes in as prime minister, starts rolling out his net zero agenda. Absolute power is corrupting this man. He's not working for Canada. It's only for himself. We see this with his government and many of his liberals being compromised by China. We have a list of 11 people in government compromised by the CCP. We still don't know who they are. We've got a couple of them thanks to people like Sam Cooper blowing the whistle. We've got 4 or 5 of them. I don't know what it's going to take for people to realize that we need a guy like Pierre Poilievre to fix everything that's broken in Canada. Something has to resonate with people to finally wake up and fix all these problems before it's too late. Because right now we are getting so integrated with China. This is a slippery slope that we might not be able to come back from at a certain point. So looking at the comments here, we've got Canadian here. I didn't expect this on my 2026 bingo card. I was shocked when somebody sent this to me this morning. I woke up and there it was. I was like, wow. Because I listen to this guy's podcast when I go to sleep. People should control the government. The government is controlling the people. Yep. 8 minutes in, and this is already way better than the Rogan one. Well, the Rogan one was different. It's a different kind of crowd. Obviously a lot more to do with martial arts and all that, but this was a better podcast. I think Pierre nailed both of them, but this one is just more intellectual. It gets into the weeds and some different stuff. This might be better than the Rogan episode. Great job, Pierre. He just needs to go on all of these because they bring out a different part in every single one. Pierre is very humble and has my vote. We need to get Carney out. Canadians watching from Spain. Canadian watching from Montreal. Watching from Austria. There's Canadians watching from everywhere. Remarkable interview. We'll see where this one ends up landing. It's currently at 325,000 views. I believe the Rogan one is over 2 million, 2.8 million. It's about to hit 3 million. Oh, this one's really cooking here. Poilievre just needs to keep doing more of these. Moving ahead, we've got quite the turn of events. We've got the bloc leader here, Yves Francois Blanchet, saying that while in general they support of this Alto high-speed rail, they don't approve of how the Liberals are doing it, because the Liberals are trying to ram through a $90 billion project that'll turn into a $150 billion project that's going to essentially SNC-Lavalin. It's just renamed SNC-Lavalin, that company caught up in all sorts of fraud and bribery in Libya, Montreal, wherever else, the one that Justin Trudeau should have been arrested for. So it's interesting to see they're not supporting it.
Regarding this project, the Alto project, can you summarize your position for the people here in Terrebonne?
The Liberals have had a bill adopted giving them rights to suspend many laws, go on without consultations, go over the Transportation Board of Canada, something like that. I don't know what's the name in English precisely. And that gives them the right to take the property of citizens and make it their own, reserving a very wide 10 kilometers trajectory. I don't know what to say that in English, while they will need only 60 meters. We say we have supported the idea of high-speed train before the Liberals did. But we have some conditions about the way it has to be done. It has to be done properly with the right information, the right analysis for this project, and not a bulldozer going over usual laws and procedure, respectful for the citizens and owners of houses and farms along the way. So if
that's what they want to do, they just take taxpayers' land. Here's a few bucks. Now it's our land. We're going to bulldoze this train through. They don't care because, well, these big companies like S&C Lavalin, or I guess it's Atkins Realis, that's the name they renamed it to, will get these huge contracts and get stinking rich from it. So they don't care exactly what goes on with this. As long as they get the big, juicy, lucrative contracts, it doesn't matter to these guys. And taxpayers are going to get absolutely screwed. Food prices will continue to go through the roof because this deficit inflationary spending is not stopping. The interest on our debt is outrageous, and this is just going to make it worse.
If our conditions are not met, we won't be in favor of this project. Even if we were promoting it, even before the Liberals, we would have done it the right way.
So in favor in general, but not supporting how the Liberals are doing it. Of course, the Liberals, everything they do is corrupt. The trains better speak French. Why aren't I seeing him getting slandered about it the same way Pierre Poilievre is? Because the media is corrupt in our country. That's why. Poilievre is the only one with any sort of sense here that we don't need a $90 billion up to $150 billion high-speed rail paid for by taxpayers that increases our deficit beyond belief. We've gotten the numbers for this. This will be awful for Canada. So this guy here, Kyle Riley, posting this, wait, are we spending $100+ billion on a train that will only ever yield maybe $20 billion in economic benefits, and everyone knows that? Julian originally sharing this off of the CD Howe website. Our recent CD Howe Institute papers explores economic benefits of the Alto using scenario modeled over 60-year period. It estimates total benefits ranging from $15 billion under conservative passenger growth scenario to $27 billion under most optimistic scenario. As in, yeah, around $20 billion. $15 to $20 billion is what we'll make from this, but it'll cost us upwards of $90, $100, $150 billion. This is all just to enrich the construction companies that are linked to the Liberals. That's all this is. In reality, it just doesn't make economic sense to build these kind of things. I would love to see a bullet train that goes all the way across Canada. We don't have enough people for that. Otherwise, the private sector would have already done this. While we're talking about high-speed rail, thought this was an interesting diagram here, mapping out the growing opposition to the current Alto high-speed rail plan. And what do we see? A whole bunch of X's, question marks, yellow things, and a couple of green things here on the left. So looking at this, support of the current plan, we've got Emma Harrison MP and City of Peterborough supporting Alto high-speed rail. That's basically it. All the rest does not support the plan is an X. Exclamations has stated concerns about the plan. This yellow plus sign has proposed other route and or stop. Statement pending is P and question mark is no formal statement. So looking across all of these here, we've got so many X's. Scott Reed MP, Shelby Camp Newman MP. These are all conservatives, obviously. Different city of Belleville. With most of these MPs or towns and cities opposing this, who is on the fence? Well, these yellow ones here, we've got town of Smiths Falls, we've got city of Brockville, and we've got Mark Gerritsen MP. No surprise there. It says Ted Hu, MPP, City of Kingston. There's a whole bunch here. And then notes here, Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, is yellow as well. Clearly, Doug Ford, I mean, you saw from the polling data earlier, he's not doing what the people want anymore. He's starting to lose power here pretty quickly.